This is the guidance video for the Year 8 extended homework on World War I, the content of which overlaps with the GCSE provision, and hence you will be working through a series of tasks that are there to support and embed knowledge for your potential GCSE. As you can see from the front cover, the booklet is broken down into a series through in any order you like. You can manage your own time, or you can work through it as directed by your teacher. So the first thing that you've got here as a task is a video-based activity, World War I Uncut, Why the Trenches. You're going to watch the video as identified here under the title, and you're going to complete the worksheet. Moving forward, then going to analyse the trenches themselves in a little bit more detail. We have here a profile of the trench, and we have here various features of the trench to match with the descriptions. Then studying the soldiers in the trenches, identifying each element of the kit and uniform that the soldier is wearing. Here's the kit and an extension task, again with further video. Then the optional part of the homework, the construction of the trench itself. You can read the information, you can study the information, but you can also build the trench if you want to, looking at the particular elements here of the front line, the support and the reserve line, and then the communication trenches that run between them, linking them all together, no man's land, and then the German trench system on the reverse side. Trench planning sheet here. Then further research. Take the history of the war from 1914 to 1918 and a brief overview here, please, of the key events of the war. Moving on, having studied an overview of the war from 1914 to 1918, now choose one particular battle. We have a list here of Ypres, Passchendaele, the Somme or Arras, or another famous battle, which you may choose. Moving on, then we have some inference-based questions based upon the GCSE exam. Take a look at each of the three sources. What can it tell us about life on the trenches? Higher order thinking, not comprehension, but inference. What can you make an educated guess about or an assumption? And then in the format of the GCSE, write it out in the format provided. And again. Okay, having studied the soldiers, the trenches, the battles, what were the injuries like? And information here then on some of those particular injuries: trench fever, trench foot, shell shock, gunshot, infection and poison gas. Read your way through that particular set of, and then you have the ability on this page here to make some notes on each of those. So take the bulk of the information provided and condense it down into the key information on this. If injuries are occurring, how then are the wounded evacuated from the front line, from the battle, to get the treatment that they need? Use the video link provided here, read the information and complete the activities. Each of these things identified here is a location in the chain of evacuation. You need to have an understanding of how that evacuation worked. And there's a grid there on which you can do some further research based again to a video. Treatments. Once the soldiers had been evacuated, how were they treated? Well, what you're going to see is that war, and World War I in particular, was a particularly encouraging time of innovation. All these men with all these injuries allowed surgeons and doctors and medics to innovate and develop new techniques to help with the treatment. We have here the Thomas splint, X-ray machines, blood transfusion, brain surgery, the treating of wounds, plastic surgery. Then you have ability again to make some brief notes under each of those headings. Further research here, video-based, World War One uncut. Again, watch the video, complete the activity for further enrichment. Coming to the end now, the final few activities. This is the feature-based question. Describe 2 features of, in this case it's trench fever. Tell me what the feature is, give me some description. Tell me what another feature is, give me some additional information and details. Secondly, how useful are sources A and B? Again, this is a question style that you are familiar with. I only want you to focus on the usefulness of the source. Talk about initially the nature, origin and purpose of the source, then deal with the content of the source, and then make sure that you talk to me about your own knowledge of the historical context. I need 2 reasons why source A is useful, 2 reasons why source B is useful, and then a brief conclusion as to which is the more useful of the 2 sources for the particular focus that we have here, which is this case an inquiry into the problem of trench foot. So one more time, your first strength should be based upon the nature, origin and purpose of the source and the provenance, the information that comes with it. Second usefulness reason should be based upon the content of the source backed up by your own knowledge, and then repeat for the second source. And you can see here that the sources in this case are extended writing. There's the opportunity for you to answer. Question 3. How could you follow up on source A to find out more about how injured soldiers were treated on the Western Front? So the follow-up question is a rather straightforward activity where you have to methodically work your way through a series of questions based upon a source. In this case, you'll read source A, and bearing in mind we want to find out more about how well injured soldiers were treated, tell me something from this quote that you would like to follow up. So, quote, take a quick quote from that particular source that you would like to find out more about in order to find out about how well soldiers were treated. What is the question you would ask based upon these details? What type of source could you use? In that case, you have to be very specific, so you can't say a diary, you can't say medical records. I would need to know whose diary, from when. And then finally, how might this help my question? Why is that particular source useful? So a straightforward series of questions that you need to work your way through.